Okay, welcome to the Cerebral Jam Session number 1. This is the impact of real life events. I'm Adam Bauserman. I'm here with Chris Huzinec, and we're going to just kind of go have a nice conversation about different topics that are happening here in the world and how that's impacting not only our students and our teachers, but really kind of schools, communities, and society as a whole. So, Chris, if you want to say hello, we can get rolling.
All right. Hi, this is Chris Huzinec. I'm the consultant, senior educational consultant with Pearson. Talking with Adam. We tend to have our long-winded conversations. We'll try to keep this kind of short, but yeah, we wanted to have a discussion on some of the things that are going on and how it has impacted all of us, and to kind of get a perspective on it so that we can better help our students. So
Absolutely. And there's lots that we could talk about. When Chris and I were working this out, we kind of thought about pandemic, of course, the civil unrest that started this summer and has kind of continued on, but also disinformation campaigns. But some of the things that we like to talk about, and Chris is really good about this, is talking about the traumas, all the different things that can lead to a trauma. So loss of employment could be one, right now trying to have access to healthcare for the vaccinations, inequities in schools. But so Chris, I mean, trauma is a big thing that I know that you work in, and you're talking about, how do you see loss of employment or just all the stuff that's going on leading to these traumas?
Well, I think, Adam, when we really have to look at this is this has been this past year, particularly, has been trauma for all. That we've all experienced trauma because everyone has had their lives disrupted. Some of us, I feel lucky that, my life has, I've had some friends who've died, but my family has been safe. I've been employed. I feel fairly lucky to be not as traumatized, but we've all been traumatized because of this crisis, because it's changed the way that we've lived. And whenever you have stressors like that, they'll change how your attitudes. They'll change how you approach living. They'll impact your well-being. So, for all of us, we've had this sense of trauma. Now, the thing is that when we're working with our with our students and with the educators, is that this trauma, though, while we've all experienced, is incredibly diverse in its manifestation and scope. And so, again, like I said, I feel fairly lucky that that the family members that I've had who have gotten COVID have survived it without much complications. And like I've already said, I've kept my employment. My stepson has kept his job,
Right.
and so, it hasn't been disrupted. But the fact is that, some of our students, that's it. They've been trying to go back to school, and their parents have lost their jobs. Some they've had deaths in their family, a grandparent or a parent. Educators, teachers have had deaths in their families, and teachers have died. Because of COVID. So, these are severe traumas. So, when we're looking at the idea that we've all experienced trauma, it's the degree of trauma that we have to look at. And, we have to find some way of determining that to help with our students to determine that, and with educators. So.
Yeah, I think you made a good point. I think a lot of what's happening is until it really impacts you, I think about it kind of like cancer. Like people would say, well, cancer was out there until it really impacted someone you knew. I'm like you. My family has been pretty well, preserved, and nothing's really happening with them. But we've had some close calls, had some really sick family members. But when you start to get to know, I know this person or this person. My dad's in a very small farming community. They've had 4 people die in their community. I mean, it really starts to kind of hit home. And I think that, as you mentioned, that you should stress. And I think we have kids who have fear because they don't know what's coming next. And I think that's one of the scariest things is they hear, it was, we're going to have a lull, and then there might be a little lull, and then it's going to spike, and then it's going to lull, and then it's going to spike. And for some kids, that kind of uncertainty is difficult, but there's a lot of kids that they haven't even gone back to school. They haven't been in school since March of last year. And so that's really difficult. But I think also, with the pandemic comes lots of crazy information that we don't know what's happening, and kids just trying to sift through that, parents trying to sift through that. We have confusion. And what I'm finding is, and listening to people, is all this stress, trauma, fear, confusion is leading to anger. I mean, people are starting to get angry. They're starting to act differently, as you mentioned. And so just trying to find this path that we can walk down. We talked a little bit about, off air a couple times, these biases that maybe be starting to be created within these people just from what they're hearing, but also this bias confirmation. And I know you talked a little bit about that. So could you kind of go around a bias confirmation of what's happening?
Yeah, I think, the confirmation bias that people use with information that they're gathering, starts with the fact is that, well, I mentioned the pandemic has been a real impact on all of our mental health because of the trauma. And then, the thing is that it didn't start though with the pandemic. That if you look at the issues in mental health, the opioid crisis there, even before the pandemics, started, let's say January of last year. So last year, a year ago, we could say that we started becoming aware, and it wasn't until March that we shut down. The year before that, we've had increases in overdoses. Now it's gotten worse because of the pandemic, and so the pandemic has added to it. But there are issues that were going on that were causing higher overdoses, that more mental health issues. The economy, while greatly impacted from the pandemic, was starting to slow prior to, and people were losing the jobs prior to the pandemic. So we have these issues. Now, the thing is that people want to blame the pandemic. And by blaming the pandemic, we don't address some of the other underlying conditions. So part of that confirmation bias is that I believe that that's the pandemic's fault, or I believe that. And in another case, a lot of people don't believe in the pandemic, or that
Right.
it's real. I believe that because we have been, quote unquote, locked down, that these are the problems that are occurring. Again, we need to try to get information out, because the truth of the matter is that we've not been locked down. There has not been a real lockdown that other countries have done. We've done it, by state. There's partial lockdowns and things like that. So we've been keeping parts of the economy going and parts of everyday life going. And for some, though, the best thing to do, some people, is to blame everything on that. And again, the problem with playing that kind of game is that you're not addressing the issues, you're not looking at what's underlying it, and how can we help our students, how can we help people in our community. And I think part of it is focusing on an honest conversation, getting beyond
Absolutely.
the idea that there has to be sides to this, and that we are all, again, there are almost 500,000 dead people.
Right.
And so we know that this has impacted us. So if we get beyond arguing about what things that we've done are wrong, what things that we've done are right. Again, like I said at the beginning, we've had trauma. Everyone has experienced trauma. Let's focus on what we can do to help and move forward. And I think the thing that, as educators, that when we're trying to re-engage students, is we're not sure, again, like I've already mentioned, the scope of the trauma that they've each experienced, but we're also not sure, their because we didn't look at it, it was something that wasn't really looked at. How well equipped were the students or our educators or us in general able to deal or cope with this trauma? So, when we look at kind of solutions, is that how can we get information, honest information, through conversation, through observation, through as teachers observing their students,
Right.
Things like that. How can we honestly say, okay, where do we go from here? What can we do to help support students as we re-engage? What can we help to do to support educators as we re-engage? What can we do for ourselves in our community as things hopefully are moving forward and opening up? Because it's not going to be a switch. We all want it to be.
Right. It's
We
not
all
just going
want,
to turn
I mean,
off
I want
just
to go back
automatically.
and be able to sit down at a bar and order a drink. My
Right.
situation, because of my situation, I haven't done that since March 12th of last year. So, I want to do that. Okay. But the thing is that when I'm able to do that, that doesn't mean that, oh, now everything is back to normal. They like to talk about the new normal, which I think is a misnomer, because things aren't going to be quote unquote normal.
No, things have been going to be changing for sure. And, glad you mentioned, kind of what people can do, whether they are just, observing their students, observing each other, not playing the blame game, trying to figure out what's going on. And, we're building resiliency. And so that's going to be perfect as we kind of lead into, the next conversation we have next time when we talk about conversations is, we know the impact. And I think we kind of talked about it today a little bit, the impact that's happening, but we are standing in this blame game of we can blame the pandemic. We can blame, civil unrest. We can blame disinformation campaigns. We can blame anything we want, but it's not moving the needle in the right direction. It's just staying static. So, what's great is we're going to do this again, and we're going to have another conversation, which is about conversations, but really looking at, these topics. And we know the impact. Chris really talked about the impact today, but then also the next step is what are the conversations we're having around this? And then what we'll go from there. So, Chris, I appreciate your time. It's great. And, I like this informal setting and look forward to doing it again. So
Yeah, me too, Adam.
It ought to be awesome. So, all right, everybody, next time we will talk about conversations, and we look forward to you popping in and watching to see what we have to say.